Hi everyone, welcome to Lumination. My name is Adaora and I'm extremely passionate about helping people live a purposeful life. On this show, I'm going to be talking with so many amazing people whose journeys I hope will inspire you, will motivate you, and will empower you to do so many amazing things in this world, because I believe that you were made for greatness. And so I want you to listen to all of this stuff, and I want you to remind yourself that you are light. Ladi Okuneye is an internationally certified Enneagram personality coach, as well as an experienced telecoms, media, and technology consultant. As a specialist coach, facilitator, and consultant, Ladi uses his unique blend of skills to offer powerful frameworks that help organizations deal with leadership and development, team dynamics, and conflict resolution issues. He also works with individuals and couples who are looking for a transformational tool to aid their journeys towards self-mastery and healthier relationships. On this episode, Ladi talks about the Enneagram Test, personality types, and behavioral traits, and how all these determine the way that we interact with everything and with everyone around us. Hi, Ladi. It is brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This conversation is going to be quite interesting, because I feel like, we have such a deep connection in terms of our personalities, our values, our thought process, and all of that. And, my hope is that people will listen to this and take out so much from it. You are clearly one in a billion, if I say so myself. I think, you've done so much amazing work, but more importantly, you are very empathic and you're very connected and in tune to people, right? And that's very beautiful. He's also my life coach, my brother, my family. And so, I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thanks
I know
for
you just
having
hopped
me.
off a flight recently and all of that drama, but you made it.
Yes, but there are certain places you go that give you energy when you don't have any. And anytime I hang with you, you give me energy. So
thank you.
Good to be here.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So we're gonna jump right into it, right? I want to talk about, you're an Enneagram coach,
Yes.
and you've got thought process about how personalities work. Mm-hmm. You've delved deep into it. You've taken classes on it. You've been trained on it. And so I want to talk a little bit about, that journey to doing this, first of all. Like, where did that come from? At what point did you say, you know what, I'm actually interested in people and how people work?
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, where did the journey begin? My wife and I we actually are still marriage counselors, coaches. She actually also has a more focused marriage coaching practice as well. But the whole journey for us started many years ago. We were in church as a young couple, and we were just like, you know what? Why don't we learn a little bit more about how to be in a healthy relationship? So we actually went through the process of marriage counseling through our church ourselves, and eventually the church, I guess, decided that we should also become counselors as well. And this was the point in our lives where we were already leading a house fellowship, so we felt we were already serving. But then this came about, and we just found out that this was something we were really, really passionate about. So we moved into the marriage counseling space, primarily working with couples in church. So we ended up having the opportunity to work with a lot of couples. The way we used to run the program at the time in the church was each counselor would have 3 couples that they worked with. So over the course of a year, you end up working with maybe about 10 couples, 9 to 10 couples, over a 10 to 11 week period of time, just taking them through the different areas of marriage, from everyone's roles and responsibilities to communication, to conflict resolution, to how to manage their money, whatever. You take them through all these things, right? And so over the course of that, you start to see certain patterns. You start to just see certain patterns. One of the first patterns that we discovered was that at the root of a lot of the problems people were having was communication. Okay. So we're like, okay, you know what? We really need to focus in on the communication aspect of this curriculum, because if these guys can fix their communication, then a lot of the other issues that were coming up will eventually just kind of fall away. So we kind of zeroed in and zoned in on that, right? But then as we were working with people on that, we realized that you're able to teach them what communication is, right? But then there were deeper issues. So that was something that I was kind of struggling with at the time. Like, you know what? There's still something missing. There's something that we're not able to make these people see. And I started to realize that these guys don't even understand each other. Some of these folks don't even really understand themselves. They don't even know why they do what they do. They don't know why they behave the way they behave. You know, it's so easy to be like, oh, you make me behave that way. You made me do this, or you made me do that. But there's obviously something else. So I was kind of battling with that. And then we're parents. We have 3 kids, and they were also starting to get older. And then as your kids start to get older, you start to notice their personalities a lot more. And you start, one of the first things that hits you is how different they can all be. And you're there saying to yourself, I'm raising them in the same household, right? They're exposed to the exact same things, but why are they so different? You try certain parenting techniques with one, but they don't work with the other. And we started to notice things like that. So it just hit me that, look, I need to understand each child individually, just so that I'm able to parent them based on what they need individually. I need to really understand what I need to focus on with each of these kids. So I kind of have this, I'm trying to be a better parent thing going. I kind of have this, I'm trying to be a better counselor thing going as well. And so I just start doing my research. I used to work for a telecom company that had this pretty small vision. Their vision was to connect the other 3 billion people in the world that don't have access to reliable internet connectivity. So, I mean, needless to say, this was a very innovative environment. This was a very, very, a group of very, very bold people trying to go out there and change the world, right? So, in the course of the work that we were doing, I mean, we'd have tons of retreats and things of that nature. And I remember in one of our retreats, us having personality assessments done. And I remember that I couldn't take the results of those personality assessments away to go and use them in other areas of my life outside of work, because I found out that they were very, very outward focused. The outward focus that we all have, that's our behavior, that's our personality. But then there's the stuff underneath, right?
The self.
Really. And when things are not going well, the truth of the matter is, it's the self that's the problem. I mean, if you think about it, even just from a business environment perspective. Companies are like, okay, we're trying to achieve this great thing, but our people, they don't get it. So they end up reorganizing the company, or, they bring in an expert to assess the people. But then if you're just focused on the outward things, you're missing a critical piece, because it's their inward things that they're also bringing into the work environment, that they're bringing into that experience that's affecting what they're doing. It's affecting how they're relating with other people. So I just realized that there's got to be more. There's got to be other ways to dig a bit deeper. So just doing a lot of research. Through that process, I discovered the Enneagram, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks when one particular personality type was described, and it just fit me like a glove. And not only did it fit me like a glove, I'm going to say it again, it actually hit me like a ton of bricks, because I felt like it knocked me down, because there were things about it that I would have struggled to admit to myself. And that's always a good sign. That's always a good sign, because those things you struggle to admit to yourself. Those are the things that are in your blind spot.
Those are the things that you really need to deal with.
Those are the things you really need to deal with. Yeah. They're the things you really need to deal with.
And so what kind of like differentiates the Enneagram from the other tests?
A lot of the other tests are very outward focused. They focus on your cognitive skills. They focus on your strengths, right? You know, Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finders. You know, a lot of them focus on what you're already good at, but they don't challenge you on the things that you would struggle to admit to yourself. They don't challenge you at the soul level. They don't challenge you at the essence level. They don't challenge you at the motivation level. And that, to me, is what was different about the Enneagram. So its origins are not that clear. I mean, it goes as far back as the 12th century, probably even earlier than that. At some point, you know, some guy sets up this spirituality school somewhere in Europe, and he invites teachers, psychologists, and all sorts of people from different fields into his spirituality school so they could share different ideas. And he started sharing concepts about the Enneagram, what we now know as the Enneagram. Started sharing concepts about how there's 9 different lenses through which we look at the world, right? There was someone else who discovered that there's, from an intelligence perspective, there's not just your head intelligence. There's actually 3 different centers of intelligence that each human being has. You have your thinking, you have your feeling, and you have your doing. So each of these are different centers of intelligence that we all have. Right. Well, different contemporaries in psychology and in the spirituality space are all doing a bunch of work around the late 20s up until the 70s. And then there was someone else who, she came up with this finding that we all respond to life 3 different ways. What am I going to do? What do I think? What do I feel? We all respond to life either, you know, by moving towards people, moving away from people, or moving against people, right? Then eventually people started to take all these things and they took some of these other concepts and they overlaid them over the foundational work of the Enneagram. There was some work done around the human instincts. Yeah. And that was basically someone discovering that there's 3 core human instincts that we all have. Yeah. There's the instinct of self-preservation, which is basically, how do I survive? Right? There's a social instinct, which is basically where do I fit in the group that I belong to, just so that we as a group, everyone knows their role, so that we as a group or a clan or a village or whatever, so that we can,
like, about integration,
and even to be able to preserve ourselves against whatever is out there. Then there's also another instinct, which is the one-on-one instinct, which is more along the lines of, how do I preserve my bloodline? How do I form the relationships that are going to keep me around, or keep my generations or whatever around for an extended period of time? So we have these 3 different instincts, and they were able to lay these instincts over the Enneagram. And they started to see patterns, right? They started to see that within those 9 different lenses, you'd have a group of, 3 different types of people that the center of intelligence that they defaulted to was maybe their doing center of intelligence. They were more, doing, type people. You would find people who are more heart-centered people. So you'd find another 3 groups who are heart-centered. Then you'd find another 3 group that were thinking-centered type of people. And even within each of those, so they decided to call those triads, right? And then even within the triads, you would find that those different ways in which people, also even respond to maybe what they want to get out of the world, which is either they're assertive or compliant or withdrawn. You would find one of the numbers that fits in each of those in each of those traits. So there were all these patterns, right, that were able to be overlaid, over that basic work that the early guys had done around the Enneagram, and it just made sense to me. It just made so much sense to me. So that is what kind of brought me into this journey of becoming a student of the Enneagram, and now moving me into a space where I'm now taking it out into the world. I just have this passion to help people achieve self-mastery by understanding themselves better, knowing the journey they really need to go on. Right? People who want to experience transformational change, but don't really know how to start. It starts from you even understanding yourself. People who find themselves in a dilemma, but don't really know the first steps to take or what's even contributing to that dilemma. You're able to use tools like the Enneagram, as well as, of course, it's a tool, right? It's not a one and all, right? It's something you use alongside everything else that you have in life, from your lived experience to other tools that are out there, whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, it's pretty much, I feel like, it's a proven method. Obviously it was created off of a lot of data that was collected, over a period of time. It was one of those things that I didn't necessarily feel like I needed at the time. Obviously, going through life and then taking so many personality tests, even down to, so I took the DISC, I took, Myers-Briggs, also just taking all those quizzes that come up on social media. You see it's a quiz, you take it, and then it tells you about, you share the same personality as one great person, and they mention all the great people, and your mindset is automatically like, I'm as great as this person because we share personalities and everything. And it's like, I think when I discovered the Enneagram through you, it just opened up a completely different world for me, where I was able to see, like you've mentioned, the weaknesses as well. So what are your blind spots and how can you overcome that? And then focusing on, like, just understanding that people have different personalities, right?
Yes.
And so people will perceive you a certain way, and that's your personality pretty much.
And they don't understand why. They don't understand the motivation behind it. And one of the things about the Enneagram is it helps you understand that people's outward behavior is not all that they are. So you could see two people do the same thing, and you think you understand them, and you think that they are alike, but they have different reasons for doing that thing that they did. You can find, for example, someone that is very, maybe just very driven and gets the job done, right? And you just think, okay, well, this guy, maybe he's doing that because he just likes to outshine everybody else, and he gets his validation from just being the star. And while that is possible, that can be a reason why he did it, there are other people who would have the same exact result, but have a totally different motivation for why they did that same exact thing. For example, you can have someone who might be of a personality of a peacemaker like myself, which is the Enneagram 9. And people might experience you in the work environment and see you just like getting stuff done, but they don't understand like the amount of energy it takes for you, or they don't understand that one of the reasons why you are getting it done is because you subconsciously believe that, look, this is something that needs to be done, and if it's not done, there's going to be conflict in the environment that I'm in, and I don't like conflict.
Right.
I do not like conflict at all, which is one of my blind spots. I don't like conflict. I want to do everything I can. I subconsciously do everything I can to avoid conflict, even to the point of becoming an expert at managing conflict. A lot of times people call me to actually come and help them manage conflicts, And they don't, and they just think, oh, you're just good at this, but they don't realize that, yeah, the reason I might be good at it is because I don't even just,
you don't like it, so you want to solve it.
I want to solve it so that we don't have to have it.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Right.
So, and sometimes that manifests itself in the form of, okay, well, you know what, something needs to be done. And then this guy he's just this doer. He goes out and gets it done. I did it for a different reason than maybe the guy who just likes to be a star, who just likes to look good as he does stuff.
Yeah.
I do it for a different reason than the person who is a helper. You know, that's the Enneagram 2, who naturally gets their validation from what they're doing for other people. I do it differently from the person who, to him, it's just a new experience, right? Because he's all about new experiences and just doing exciting things, simply because for him, he doesn't like to even face or experience any pain or anything different. It's his way of even just avoiding. It's a defense mechanism for him. You see what I mean? So that's one of the reasons why it's important you at least have, at a high level, an understanding of why people do what it is that they do.
But then where do we even form these personalities? I know I'm interested in knowing, where do we form the personalities? Where does it start? At what point in your childhood does it start? That's one. And two, can we shift personalities? So do you ever encounter people who are stuck in a personality that really isn't theirs?
Okay. Very good question. I'm going to answer the last one first. And I'll probably just go backwards from there. Do you account people who are stuck in a personality? I think the first thing that we should establish is none of us are our personality. None. Your personality is not who you are. Your personality is who you think you need to be to get what you want out of this world. People love us for our personality. They probably won't like us for our essence if they were to eventually get down to who our essence is. And we all need to go on this journey of, okay, so I am my personality, right? But we need to eventually realize that, no, I'm actually not my personality. And we need to deconstruct that. So our personality we can consider that the order in which we go into the world. And then when you learn a lot more about yourself and you realize that your essence, your soul is actually different from your personality, you experience some disorder because you're like, I always thought this was me, but then I'm seeing other things about myself that I didn't understand. And then once you start that journey of moving towards integration, then you can reorder who you are. So you go through this order, disorder, and reorder journey. And when you eventually arrive in the reorder process, of course, people understand you better. You come across as a lot more authentic. So
essentially, if I'm right, so are we saying our personalities, are what we develop in order to integrate into society?
100%. It's what we develop in order to integrate into society. So in terms of, are you stuck in a personality and does it change? Again, your core essence is who you are. The lens through which you start off looking at life doesn't change. What you do with it can change over time. So let me just establish a couple of things. So you have your core essence, I'll use the word personality in this case. And then you have these instincts that I described earlier, which is, are you a self-preservation person? Is that the instinct you naturally fall to? Are you a one-on-one type person? Are you a social person? We all have these instincts built into us, and we access them at different times based on what we feel we need, and based on which one feels like a strength to us. So there's that, and that can be movable as just as you grow and as you experience life. Your instincts, you can sharpen certain instincts, you can dull certain instincts, and so that can happen. You also have your centers of intelligence, which is when something happens, do you think first? when something happens, do you act first?
Right.
When something happens, do you
right.
feel first?
Right.
These are things that you can kind of move around as you're working towards your journey of being more integrated, right? But your core personality, always your core essence, is who you are, is who God created you to be. Your personality is that stuff you built on top of that. And yes, that can shape shift based on what you need to get out of this world, but the core of who you are, that doesn't change.
Yeah,
that's what you're trying to get back to, actually.
Right, because you're. I always like to say, like we're spirits in a bottle.
Yes.
So, right. So if you're a spirit in a container,
yes,
right, for that human container to be able to thrive in this world, like it needs to be able to integrate. It needs to be able to do things. It needs to be able, and it's like, so you have to build that personality.
Yes.
And it really depends on your environment. It depends 100%. On all those things, right? Because some people feel 100%. Like they don't need to build certain instincts, or they naturally don't even get those instincts because
100%.
They're not in an environment that requires that they use that part.
They use that part of who they are. So I think that's a good segue into the first question, which is at what point does that start getting formed? It actually, it starts really, really early in life. Some people say as early as age 7, sometimes slightly earlier or a little bit later, depending on your life experiences and your level of maturity. But the thing is, so God creates all of us balanced, right? So God created us to use our thinking for activities that require thinking, to use our feeling for activities that require feeling, and to use our ability to do for activity that require doing. So we all start off as balanced that way. But then at some point in your life, something happens. Everyone experiences some sort of a wound, some sort of a realization that, this life is not perfect. It's not, I can't get every single thing I want. There's just not enough resources in the world for every single one of us to get every single thing that we want. So, for example, as a kid, when you experience this, and it could happen at any point in time, when you experience this, each person has a different reaction to that. Some kids end up being angry, okay? And then that now becomes the baseline of what their personality now becomes. So it's like they discover that, in this world, I can't get everything I want, or, this world is just not what I thought it was going to be. And they're angry at that. So some kids will decide that, if that's the case, I'm just going to go out there and make up the world of myself. I'm going to control everything that I can. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to lead and take control. And that then becomes the baseline of the personality that they start to form. Those guys end up being more in the Enneagram 8 range. There's people like myself who then, what happens with folks like us is we're like, okay, so this world is not perfect, but I'm angry about it, but that's not a good emotion. I want to just not deal with that at all. And one of the things I'm noticing about this world is there's so much conflict in this world. It could be that I was seeing a lot of conflict in my home with, between my parents, or it could be that I saw it somewhere else. I mean, everyone's experience is different. So we just decide, and we're angry about this. So we just decide that, we are going to self-forget. If we don't have any needs, then we don't increase the volume of conflict that's in the world. We start to feel like, well, one of the reasons why there's so much conflict in the world is because there's all these needs, right? And so we just decide that, we're going to dull that. We're not going to have any needs. Okay. And we're just going to try and keep the peace. We're going to try and make sure that, everywhere we go, whatever is required to just keep it a calm environment, that's what we're going to do. And then that starts to shape our personality. And you have others who they realize the world is not perfect. and they're angry about it, and that emotion stays with them. That emotion of anger actually stays with them. And what they decide they're going to do is, you know what? I'm going to either try to fix myself, or I'm going to try to fix the world, or I'm going to find somebody that I'm going to throw all my attention into and fix them. Right. And so you might be able to start to see how this starts to then blend with the different instincts that they have, like maybe a social instinct, or a self-preservation instinct, or a one-on-one instinct. But then these things start to shape their personality. So these three different types of people that I just described are known as the Enneagram. The first is the Enneagram 8. The second, which is myself, is the Enneagram 9. And then the last one I just described is the Enneagram 1, where the ones, known as the people in the body center, where the ones who, first of all, take in information, through feeling. We don't always process that information and analyze that information. We process it through feeling, but we don't always analyze it and respond back with feeling, right? But that's how we take it in. But then what also then starts to happen with each and every one of us is, once we come to this realization, and once we come to the realization that there is a particular way that the people in our lives, the people who we love, need us to be for us to continue to get their love, we start to lean more on whatever intelligence is going to give us that. So what then happens is, when you start to lean more on one of your centers of intelligence, you start to use it more because it's the one getting you what you want. Right. Then there ends up being a second center of intelligence that supports that. And then there's a third one that just gets suppressed and not used at all, because he comes up, he gets wounded. So he just stays down, and he eventually just gets suppressed, and you just end up not using him. You're using that center of intelligence that much. So
technically, right, from what I'm hearing, and I'll let you continue, but from what I'm hearing, it means like we all sort of have multiple personalities. We're just not building. It just depends on which one you build the most. Yes. Right? Because we all have the capacity and ability to express, right, the different behaviors that come with each of the personalities. In essence.
100%.
But we decide which ones we want to bring out at
100%, because we're trying to live and survive in the world, and the world is speaking as well. The world is telling you this is what you need to do to get what you want from here. So because we're trying to survive, that's our natural human instinct. We start to gravitate towards the things that will get us where we need to go. So let me give you an example. You can take maybe a kid who, and I think you find a lot of Nigerians that might fall into this space. You take a kid who grows up in a house where they're told that whatever you do is how you get love. If you perform well in school, that's when we're proud of you. If you clean your room, that's when we're proud of you. So that kid starts to tie love to achievement. So that then starts to, shape that kid's personality. Now, the interesting thing is that kid might be someone whose primary center of intelligence is their heart center. They take in information first through feeling. That kid might be the kind of kid that he's able to read people, which is a heart function, just the ability to be able to read people. This is what's going on with you. It's a heart function, right? But then, so he has that. But then growing up, he's told that, well, you get love only if you perform. So even though that's a center of intelligence he has, and then a gift, a strong gift that God is giving him or her, he then just decides, you know what, I'm just going to get stuff done. I'm going to dull that down, and I'm going to focus on just getting stuff done, right? And then he goes out into the world, and he's achieving success from getting stuff done. So he leans more and more and more on that. And now he's a CEO of a company, a successful company, but he's totally detached from his emotions. He had to do that to achieve the success. So see, now that thing that he had even as a kid that ended up being suppressed is now coming to bite him later in life. Now he doesn't know how to connect with his employees because he's been using 2 of his centers of intelligence. He ended up using more of his doing center of intelligence to get stuff done and his thinking center of intelligence to get stuff done. But then he suppressed his feeling center of intelligence, even though it's a part of him, even though it's, he actually uses it in a, should I say, an inefficient way. You know, he just uses it to read people just for the purpose of getting what he wants done. Because that was a journey that started for him as a child.
So you're basically debunking people who say that, oh, you know, this person, they're just like that. They're a particular way and that's how they are. So they'll be like that for the rest of their life. And then they say to you, you know, because this person is like that, you have to change yourself to try and fit that person. But it's not really that the person is like that. It's really that they have sort of built on a particular piece of land.
Yes.
Right? Essentially.
Yes.
And that's it. But it doesn't mean that they don't have the capacity.
100%.
But I guess at the core of it, and you've probably seen this in your journey, at the core of it is you have to be willing, right?
You have to be willing
to make that decision. And I think that is where coaching comes in.
Yes.
And you making a decision that, you know what, I actually need help.
100%. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Remember, people like us for our personality, not for our essence. And when you begin a journey of self-discovery, when you begin a journey of trying to figure out your essence, who am I at my core, you start to realize that, man, that person is slightly different to who the world knows. But that's who the world knows. So you might be hesitant. You might be hesitant to embark on that journey because it's hard. It's hard work that you need to do. It's soul searching. I need to get uncomfortable work that you need to do, which is why people tend to need help on that journey because it's not an easy journey. I mean, again, just using myself as an example, because I naturally don't like conflict. I'm the guy that, I smile. People feel like, oh, you're a very positive person. And people don't even realize that I hardly ever bring up any of my own needs because I've gone through this life journey of self-forgetting. I've gone through this life journey of, you know what? Any environment I find myself, let me do whatever it takes to keep everybody at peace. Yeah, everyone happy. And one of the ways for me to do that is to not complicate matters with my own needs. Oh, what do you need? Don't worry about it. What do we need? Let's focus on let's get this thing that we are all doing together. Let's get it done. But then you get angry. Remember, anger is that primary emotion that I struggle with. And I remember reading about my Enneagram type and having to deal with, are you really angry? And the truth is I am. And I'm an angry person who has been able to suppress that reality. Right. I'm angry about not having my own needs met by the world, by people. But this is something I created. So I'm on this journey of getting comfortable with and being able to access my own needs. And for me, that journey towards being able to even access my own needs is to be able to reconnect to my own feelings. It's like, the funny thing about me is I have a negative experience. I'm even calm. And, people see you like that. So again, that now becomes your personality. And that's what people accept about you. If anything happens, man, this is the calm guy. Let's all go to him. He does, no shaking. He doesn't get moved. There's a flip side to that. The flip side to that is I just came from an amazing summer with my family away. And in as much as I keep saying it, you know, we had a great time. We had a great time. We had a great time. And we did. But I just feel like I didn't access the emotions connected to a great time the way I see people who are able to connect with the emotion of having a great time. The way they feel is like I'm envious of that.
Right.
I'm envious of that. But I struggle to access that because I've just drowned that out, out.
Right.
So there's a positive and a negative to everything. So I need to do that work. And that's the work. That's one of the works I am doing in my journey towards self-mastery, towards better integration of who I am in terms of being able to pick the different sides of the human personality, being able to access the different gifts that God has available for me.
I want to talk about like spirituality a bit, just because, you know, the people who are listening to this, you know, who are probably saying, oh my gosh, like, yes, this, you know, spirituality, and they're afraid to sort of, you know, dig a little bit deeper into Enneagram and into personality in general. Because I feel like, you know, sometimes there's just a connotation that we put on understanding things like this, especially when it's not directly connected to our faith or to what, you know, what we believe. So it's like, you have people from different faiths saying, I don't really want to explore this personality thing. It sounds too, you know, and so what do you say to people like that?
Okay. So for me personally, I'm a Christian, and I'm someone that feels like I've always worn my faith on my sleeves. It's always been a big part of who I am, and it's one of the levels at which we all connect so deeply. I mean, when we get together to have a lot of the conversations that we have, they end up just moving in that direction, and it's time just kind of blows by. And one of the things I've learned as a Christian is that we're fully integrated beings. We're body and spirit, and we're soul. We're this exotic cocktail that God has put together. So for me, anything must also be able to speak to that side of who we are. I believe be it in a work environment, be it in relationships, be it in parenting, whatever the case may be, you're supposed to bring your whole self, including your spiritual self, into that environment. So even when I was on this journey of trying to discover the best way to get people to understand themselves at a deeper level, one of the requirements for me was a tool that would help address that. And I honestly feel like the Enneagram helps us address that. Like if you take each of the Enneagram personalities, each personality type, it points out, should I say, a sin or a defect or a core wound or, a way in which each person misses the mark, right? For example, I struggle with sloth. You know, I struggle with, just because I forget myself and my needs, I struggle with putting in the work regarding my needs. Right. I'm so focused, but God wants me to do that. Right. God does want me to do that.
So this is actually fixing.
It's fixing that. I am missing the mark. One of the definitions of sin is actually just missing the mark. So I'm missing the mark that way. There are people who struggle with anger. The Enneagram ones struggle with anger. And these are the people who just feel like, you know what, I need to get things perfect, but you're replacing God in that. Sometimes done is good enough. It doesn't always have to be perfect. You know, they struggle with this inner critic, this voice that's telling them they're not good enough. So they invest all their energy into just making sure everything is done right. There are people who struggle with pride. You look at the Enneagram 2s, they help us. And you look at, especially when they're at an unhealthy level, before they do the work of better integrating themselves and working towards health, the real core motivation and the real reason why they help so much is because they get validation from that. They actually, at their core, believe that by helping others, by focusing on the needs of others, is how I am going to get my needs met. So they're dealing with pride. They're dealing with, I'm a good person because I help other people do their stuff. So they struggle with pride. They struggle with pride. There are the Enneagrams 3. There are people who struggle with deceit. The people who it's just all about getting the stuff done and looking good while they do it. And, you know, I described them earlier, right? You know, these are people who, they can read you, right? They can read you and they will give you what they need to give you to get what they want out of you. That's deceit. And it's just sitting there in their subconscious and they're just there like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to get it done. But that's one of their core struggles, right? There are people who struggle with envy. If you think about those people who, and a lot of creatives end up falling in this space, right? They have this, they have this burning desire to just be unique, but they also, in the process, they find themselves always looking at the next person. Why is what they did good enough? How come, but mine is better? How come they're getting praise and accolades, but I put more into mine? So they're struggling with envy. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're those who struggle with greed, because so there's one of the personalities, the Enneagram 5s, who they struggle with fear in terms of that core wound that hit them at childhood when they realized that the world was not what they thought it was.
Yeah.
For them, they became fearful and they decided that, you know what, I'm going to learn everything I need to learn in order to be able to survive in this world. I'm going to just dive into information. So they're information junkies and they're very greedy with their resources because they actually feel like they have limited resources. They actually feel like they feel like they only have this much energy every day. That's not true. And they have to commit that energy
exactly. To whatever
so they're hoarding it. They're greedy with their resources. And we can go around every number. For example, the Enneagram 7s, who are they're the fun-loving. They're the ones who come across as visionary, fun-loving, looking like they're always, having a good time. They struggle with gluttony. They can't get enough of life. They can't get enough of a good time. For example, I see this in my son. He will ask you a question. Dad, how was your day?
Right.
And you're telling him about your day and you're looking in his eyes and you're realizing that he's taken the information in, but what he's actually doing is he's weaving it into other stories in his head about another experience he wants to have. So he didn't really care what my day was. He just needed a new story. He just needed a new good, time, a new thing to envision. Right. You see what I mean? So, they lust for their lust for life is a bit too much. Yeah. You see what I mean? There's something at a spiritual level with each type of person that we struggle with. And I feel like the Enneagram helps us with that. And I feel like this is something that the church can benefit from. I feel like within the church, what you have in the church is people coming and saying, hey, I'm struggling. I have a problem and I don't know what it is. I don't know why my life is going this way. I don't know why I do some of the things that I do.
And it's kind of deeper than just go and pray.
Yeah, it's deeper than go and pray. It's you being able to help them get to the core of this, of who they are, is you being able to get that person who struggles with pride to see that, look, you're doing these things you're doing for the wrong reasons. Because see, leading a house fellowship or singing in the choir, that's not soul work, or that you're just doing. That's external stuff. I mean, I know we find a way to rephrase it and to repackage it as, no, we're doing our soul's work that way. No, we're really not. We're doing works. but we need to work on ourselves. We need to work internally. So and that's one of the things that also drew me to the Enneagram, because I consider myself a very spiritual person as a Christian. And this helped put it all together for me. Yeah. The other part of it is, so having been in the church for such a long period of my life, I've been a serious Christian since my 20s. I'm in my 40s now. And I've served, I've worked in church. My wife and I were marriage counselors and would run, counseling workshops and all these things within those environments. So I've always done that, and people always say to me that, oh, you should be a pastor, or, you have this gift from God. You should use it in this way. And I've always felt like that's other people's work to do. I'm not running away from it, but I just feel like God has other work for me to do. And then I ended up discovering this, and I find that this is my work from God to do, helping people to uncover their unconsciousness and bring those things that they're struggling with in their unconsciousness into their consciousness, so that they can begin that journey of work on themselves and becoming a better version of themselves, so that wherever it is that they go into within the work environment, in their relationships, as parents, whatever it is that they're doing, they're able to go into that as their full self. And that's what brought me into this.
I love it. The end part just got me. It's a great summary of your why, of why you're doing this, and the power in what it is that you're doing. A lot of the people who are watching you right now will want to know where they can find you after this. So can you just tell me your social media handles? Where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at L Okuneye. That's L-O-K-U-N-E-Y.
Awesome. So guys, look out for Ladi. Thank you so much. This was a very insightful conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sis.
Thanks.
Good hanging with you as always.
Subscribe to this channel for more insightful and impactful learning. Check out our website, luminaworld.com, for show episodes, resources, and events. Let's continue this journey of growth.